Hey guys, and welcome to the Lazy Lemon Creations podcast. My name is Lindsay. You can find me on Instagram as Lazy Lemon Creations, and you can find me on Ravelry as Lazy Lemon. This is my podcast all about my knitting and crochet and any sort of crafty thing that I get into. So, let's get into it. I live in the heart of the New River Valley with my husband and our 2 kids. Today is Saturday, August 1st, 2026. And I am 2 days late with this podcast because of something that happened on Thursday. It was mine and my husband's 10-year wedding anniversary, so I wasn't home. But I'll get more into that in the live section. But let's jump in to what I've been doing recently. So for July, let's do July stats. Why don't we? Because July's over. It's now August, and let's talk about what I completed. The 2 socks that I did in July, Freckled Whimsy Christmas Club, and the Felici socks that I completed, both were a little over 60 grams. And then the gray granny square blanket that I completed last month is also out of my stash for the month of July, and that was 670 grams. So just those 3 finished objects that I had done was 796 grams out of my stash. But as you can see there, I also have purchased some yarn. And that is with the blanket that I am currently making right now that you'll see in WIPs. So the yarn's being used, it's accumulating as it does. Also, it's not the time to worry about if I have more coming in versus going out, or more going out than I have coming in. Now's just the time to work on what I want to work on and just make as much as I want to make. So that's it for my July stats. So let's get into some finished objects. That's it. I don't have any to show. I have been working on a lot here recently this past week, but I haven't finished anything to completion for an FO. So everything today is a work in progress, which everything is always a work in progress in my life. So that's nothing new. So let's talk about the first thing I have, and that is a sock. This is in my A Court of Thorns and Roses ACOTAR bag from Caffeinated Craft Mama. And inside of this bag was my Nanette Wake Studios yarn in the Prune Hill colorway. It's absolutely gorgeous. I had used this yarn to test the Cottage Hearts pattern by Kayla Litton, and I decided what I'm going to do with the yarn, which I have right there. I decided what I'm going to do with it for me and my sisters. So I no longer needed the color work section, but I didn't want to complete this sock as color work. It was just to test the pattern, to make sure I knew what I was doing, and for fit. So then I put in my needles back at the beginning of the cuff, well, the end of the cuff, beginning of the sock, before the color work started. And I took all the color work out, and then I knit the whole sock. Here. It's kind of hard to tell because it's all one color with no contrast to it. But there is my slip stitch heel flap and gusset, which actually, hold on. I do have a sock blocker here. I can show you on the sock blocker. There we go. That looks like a sock now. Okay, so this sock that I have, oh, it looks so good worked up. It looks nice and fuzzy. I can't wait to finish this pair. But for this sock, which I have not woven in my end, it's over here, I do a 20 row cuff of 2x2 ribbing. I do a 30 row leg. I do my slip stitch heel flap and gusset, and then I do my foot and then my toe. For this sock, I had actually taken it with us on Thursday for our anniversary, and I took it to the movies. We went and saw The Odyssey, and I ended up doing, I think it was like 56 or 57 rows in the movie while watching The Odyssey. And I had started down in my gusset. I can remember that I was checking my gusset every time a light scene would come on, and it was every other row in a gusset, so it wasn't too bad. But then I was doing the foot, and I decided to stop it before the movie was over, because I was like, I can't count the rows. I wasn't counting my rows unless, I was counting in my gusset. Sorry for kicking the table. I was counting in my gusset to make sure that I had, 32 stitches on front, 32 stitches on the back, because I do a 64 stitch sock. And so I was counting the stitches, but not the rows. So I had no idea how much I had knit on this sock. So when we finished with the movie, we decided to go to dinner. And while we were waiting and stuff like that, I decided to pull it out and do some counting. And I had done every bit of the foot in the movie and only needed to do one row before I started my toe decreases. And I was so proud of that I instinctively knew when to stop knitting my sock. So on this side of the sock, you can see those progress keepers there. I have one every 10 rows to help me keep track to make sure that the first sock matches the second sock. And as you can see, there's none on the cuff. So for the second sock, I have finished the cuff, and I am on 5 rows of the leg. So this yarn is working up so fast. I love it so much. And what I am knitting on is a ChiaoGoo red lace 32-inch cable, and it is a 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter for the needles. So hopefully those socks will be finished pretty soon. Now, I know that last week I spun the Felici wheel and I am supposed to cast on Santorini, and I will. That is my next Felici sock that I am casting on. But this sock already had live stitches in the needles, so I did what I did. And it's just straight vanilla, and I didn't have to change for contrast heels, toes, and cuffs. So I left it be, and I love it. I love this pair of socks so much. I cannot wait to finish it. I think by the end of this year will be the last I do for a contrast heel. I still like a contrast cuff and toe, but I think after this year, I don't think I'm going to do a contrast heel anymore, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm never say never. It's just what I'm feeling, because this solid vanilla sock has just been a dream to work up. So that is what I have been knitting on. Now I have some crochet, because of course I do. Let's talk about this one. It is the, hold on. The yarn is slowly deteriorating. Deteriorating is not the right word. It is unraveling. The Cakewise is very flat now. So let me show you the label that I have here for this. It is the Caron Cloud Cake. This is the colorway Royal. This is the perfect phasing. Excuse me. This is the perfect phasing yarn. So it starts very dark in the center and works its way out gradually to a very pale whitewashed version of the main color. This one is Royal, so it's blue. And this is what I have. Where is... Okay, there is my center. And then here I had a factory knot. So I undid it and did my stitches over, and I am going to see if I can actually get the squares to match up, because what I am doing is I have 4 of these cakes. This is a very poor cake because it has been flattened, but I have 4 of the cakes that I am going to do into individual square panels and stitch those together for a blanket for my best friend. I don't know with the factory knot if the yarn is still going to end the same way, so I'm keeping them side by side to do some measuring just to make sure that they're the same. But the last time you saw the blanket, I was right there with this stitch marker from Twin Mountain Handcrafts. It's just an orange heart on some acrylic and it's glittery, but I was right there, and I have done that much more onto the blanket. So I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rows since that stitch marker. And this yarn is so soft. I don't know that it's going to pick up the texture of this yarn, but it is just the softest yarn to work with. It is 100% polyester. And one cake is 8 ounces or 22 grams. And it is 720 yards or 658 meters according to the label. So yeah, I am in love with this yarn. I am crocheting it using a 5mm crochet hook. And let's go ahead and move our progress keeper. Here we go. Where am I? Oh, I'm in the opposite corner. So let's go ahead and move this here. We're going to add it right there. Hopefully next time you see this square, it is done. But this has gotten some love on it since the last time you've seen it. And I've just really been enjoying my crochet granny squares so much. I'm in my granny era, so let's go. And then the last whip that I have is the baby blanket that I had started right before the last podcast episode. And this is the blanket, if you can remember. Last time I had just done that. I had 2 repeats of the yarn, and I had 2 of the blue squares done right underneath that brown square right here. Since then, I have done a whole nother repeat out, and then I have filled in all of the brown in the center, and then I have done extra on this end, which is a whole nother repeat. So if I were to square off the blanket, it is 3 repeats of the yarn. The cream, which is called ivory, the blue, which is baby blue, and the brown, which is called cinnamon. I have 3 repeats, no matter which way you hold the blanket. And I'm going to square it off. So the last time you saw it, I don't know how many squares I had done. Well, I mean, I could count real quick. I had like 13 squares done the last time you saw it, if my math is correct, which it might not be. And since then, I have added 14 squares to this project. This is the back side with all of the ends not yet woven in. And this is the front side where it's all pretty and just uniform. But yeah, this is the blanket that I've been working on. It is, here, I will do a close-up with one of these squares. So this yarn is just a 4-weight acrylic Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn. And in it, trying to smooth it out a little bit so that it's not so rigid, but that's how the pattern works it up. It is a corner to corner stitch. So I start in this corner and then I build and build and build. And so the ridges, as you can see, just follow in the diagonal. So for this yarn, I do 6 squares up and 6 squares across to make it a actual square. And I just do double crochet corner to corner in a little block, and then I connect them as I go. And that's how I do my gingham blankets, and I absolutely love it. Now, because of this color combo, this isn't a true gingham blanket, but I have done purple one, I have done a green one, I have done a pink one before. I love a gingham pattern for a blanket. I really want to do a true buffalo plaid for red and black, and I think I have the yarn and I think I have it started, but I don't know where it is. It's probably upstairs in my bedroom, to be 100% honest, in my closet. But I know I have the black yarn, I know I have the red yarn. I don't know if I have like the burgundy yarn that would be in between. But buffalo plaid is probably one of my favorite patterns, and just the regular picnic gingham is just so cute and versatile, and you can literally do it in any color you want to, as long as you have 2 shades of the color. Because you can do a white, and then say for purple you can do a lavender and then like an amethyst, or if you're doing green you can do white, olive, and hunter green. It doesn't matter what color you choose, as long as you have 2 shades of it, you can absolutely do a gingham pattern for a baby blanket, and I love it so much. And the corner to corner works up so fast. Now that I have the blanket squared off, I am going to then work out into rows across and up, I guess. But yeah, I am very happy with this blanket. I love the feel of it. It's going to be so soft for the baby, and it's not going to be super tiny, so he can use it for a few years actually. I don't know if I said, but I am crocheting this one using my Clover Amour 5mm crochet hook, and it has been the one I have given the most attention to in the past week, just because it's so easy to pick up and just add a square here and there for the blanket. So that's what I have been working on. That's my whips. And then let's get into some reading and watching. So reading, I am currently in Kingdom of Ash, which is the final book in the Throne of Glass series, and I love it so much. I don't want to spoil it, but we're at the point where everybody was in separate locations, and now we all have a plan to meet up at one location, and we are now en route to that. So that's where I'm at in the book. So not very far into it. I think I'm on chapter like 29, but I'm loving the story so much. And then for watching, haven't really watched much of anything, except, like I said, on Thursday was mine and my husband's 10-year wedding anniversary, and we went out and had an entire day to ourselves as a date. We had a day date that ended up going into the night as well, but it was wonderful. We went and saw The Odyssey, which is a 3-hour movie. It is a Christopher Nolan movie, so definitely be prepared to sit through that one, but it is so worth it. A+ casting in that movie as well. Loved every bit of it. Anne Hathaway has my heart, and there is a scene in the movie, not to spoil it or anything like that, it really doesn't give anything away, but she's sitting there talking about something, and she goes, "I want to close the door and burn them all." And I went, okay, just out loud in the middle of the theater. Thankfully, we saw an early enough showing so that not many people heard my agreement with Anne Hathaway, but a few did, and I stand by it. It was funny. Me and my husband enjoyed it. And then we went to dinner. We had hibachi. It's one of our favorites. We don't get it very often, typically for celebrations, birthdays, anniversaries, things like that. But it was delicious. I loved it so much. And then we went to the bookstore. We got him 2 new books because the series that he's in right now, he wants to read the physical copies of it instead of on his Kindle because he can't take his Kindle to work. He can't have electronics in the rooms that he works in because of the danger that electronics poses. And so he wants his physical books because those don't pose any danger except for the knowledge that it gives us. So we went and got him 2 new books for it. I went and plotted out the next books that I plan on reading, which I already know the books that I'm reading in advance, and it's a list. My TBR is so big. We are actually in the process of reading all of the books that are on our bookshelves so that we know what we want to keep and what we don't want to keep. So far, we haven't gotten rid of anything. They're on our bookshelf for a reason. We knew even before reading them that we wanted them on our shelf. So that plan's going great. And then for life, school starts back for my kids in 11 days. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. I love back to school time for them. It gets us into a routine. It gets us set on a better schedule, which for us in the summer isn't too bad anyway. But I love the routine of a school schedule. And then, yeah, life is going to just pan out. Next week, I want to let you guys know, I will not be here on Thursday for next week. My son has a infusion that he has to get that is going to take about 5 hours. And that's just while we're at the hospital. That's not counting travel time there and travel time back. I will not have the time on Thursday to do a podcast episode unless I were to do it very late that night. And I don't want to do that. So next week's episode will either be a day early on Wednesday, probably not considering this one is filmed on Saturday, or it'll be a day or 2 late into the weekend for next week, just because of the infusion that my son has to have next Thursday. I could skip the entire week and then start fresh again the following week, which might not be a bad idea because my kids would be in school, and so therefore I could film in the middle of the day again. So I will think on that. And